Serious, what can one person in small town America do to combat systemic racism? Vote in your local elections. It's the state or even local politicians who chose how the police force is conducted. Local laws and policies are directly impacting police forces, and it's the local politicians who are in charge of that. Obama posted something on Facebook about this angle in particular. Attend local political meetings that are open to the public. A lot of them are for the officers in charge of your police force. Just being present can change the game, as a lot of the time these aren't attended by the public, so may as well be meetings done behind closed doors. Work on your own biases. We all have them, no matter how hard we try. We can only continue to try and negate them every day. When we see potential problems, speak out. Opportunities to make things better or right, speak up. Even better would be opportunities to help black people speak up. Help make space for them where there may not be space otherwise. Then there's subtle slow burn sort of things. Like request your local library purchase books from black authors. Ask for them by name, and then check them out when they come in. This means black people in your community will have more access to books representing them, and black authors and artists get supported. Help put on some sort of event during Black History Month. It doesn't have to be big or complicated. Maybe just a black artists exhibition at the local community center, or even simpler like working with the library to put up a Black History Month book display. Do you do art? Maybe do art in honor of the current protests, movements, or during Black History Month. Put it somewhere the public can see it. Deflect or distract racists in action. For instance, talking to the victim as if the racist isn't there until they give up and go away. Or engage the racist in conversation, taking the attention off of the target, black person, other person. This doesn't solve systematic racism, but it does help relieve pressure on the communities impacted by it. I'm sure there's more out there, but those are some suggestions. Us to mention the obvious, you like those videos across social media of sheriff walking with the protesters, the police mainly there to deal with traffic around them? Well, that sheriff was most likely elected, and so was the one that ordered an extra batch of tear gas. And if you want to advocate for specific reforms that reduce police violence, the Use of Force Project lists 8 basic protections proven to reduce wrongful deaths. Require officers to de-escalate situations, where possible, by communicating with subjects, maintaining distance, and otherwise eliminating the need to use force. Prohibit choking or strangling civilians, in many cases, where less lethal force could be used instead. Require officers to intervene and stop excessive force used by other officers and report these incidents immediately to a supervisor. Restrict officers from shooting at moving vehicles, which is regarded as a particularly dangerous and ineffective tactic. Develop a force continuum that limits the types of force and/or weapons that can be used to respond to specific types of resistance. Require officers to exhaust all other reasonable means before resorting to deadly force. Require officers to give a verbal warning, when possible, before shooting at a civilian. Require officers to report each time they use force, or threaten to use force against civilians. Are you sure I can't just post on Twitter and other forms of social media with a relevant hashtag? I mean, what you are suggesting sounds like a lot of effort, and I have to spend tomorrow waiting in line for the new iPhone accessory. As important as it is to call out racism among one's community and bring awareness, I think it's just as important for one to look at oneself. I think that many people, including myself, and people of all colors, have learned racist/other prejudiced ideas from our society, whether we know it or not. I think it's really important to really dig deep and unlearn these things. Once this is done, or at least is made progress with, I would assume then the other things will become at least a little easier. Last but not least, act out of love. Even things like pointing out someone's racist remarks should be done out of loving attitude, not out of another superior attitude. I just think that there's a difference between the following, somewhat extreme but ones which surely and subtly exist, attitudes, I love and care for you, and the people you are discriminating, and this world can become a more beautiful place for you and everyone else, if you shift your worldview a little, lot. I'm not racist, but you are. I guess what I'm trying to say is really believe what you're trying to do, and learn the lies, and learn the truths. Don't be afraid to say you're wrong. As a teenager I would think Black Lives Matter Why don't all lives matter? Not out of any malice, but out of genuine ignorance of the reality of systematic racism. Now I've grown, and I know better. I can say with confidence that I was wrong. And that's not a bad thing. It's not bad to realize you're wrong. It's bad to continue being wrong because you're too proud to admit it. What people don't understand is it's not Black Lives Matter more, it's Black Lives Matter too. I used to think the All Lives Matter phrase was a positive message, and it is, but the reason it might be inappropriate is that it implies that everything is as it should be. If a house is on fire and then fire truck shows up and a neighbor says his house is important too, he should get some of the water. Well, there isn't a crisis going on with his house right now. I think maybe a compromise of the phrasing could be all lives should matter. We have a responsibility to make sure they do. All lives should matter. The point that some of us miss, myself especially, is that white lives matter is obvious or expected. We don't have to worry about being ground under the jackboot of a racist criminal with a badge. Someone will always be outraged when we are mistreated. POC don't have that same expectation of outrage, security, or a system that is set up for them. In society we separate those who are different. We classify and categorize people as we do any object. It serves a number of purposes, but this mechanism of classification is easily corruptible and inherently flawed. Marketers use this mechanism to sell us stuff all the time. Why are there women's razors and men's razors? Black Lives Matter is just easier to say than hey, we are being treated like second-class citizens or worse, and we are here to tell you that it's time you treated us like equals. Oh, and PS, stop letting cops get away with murder literally. What I'm saying is that I agree with you, but I needed to bloviate on the subject. A few years ago, Microsoft made some training on unconscious biases freely available. I think it's some training they provided to their employees, but I'm not sure. I think we've internalized a few messages that we actively need to unlearn and stop thinking and saying. If you have some time, taking the training might be something you can do to help in a small way in making sure you don't hold racist or sexist, ableist, etc. attitudes. Yes, exactly. Everyone has implicit bias, and all white people are racist to some degree, myself included. If we can think about ourselves critically and look for ways to change instead of getting defensive and thinking, well, I'm not the problem, then we can do a lot more to end these systemic issues. Don't be silent when you hear or see it. Call it out and work to educate others. Yes, and call out the small stuff too. The casual and not overtly offensive stuff. When everyday folks stop accepting small amounts of racism, the racist system won't thrive. I agree, but I also think where some of this messaging has fallen apart in the past was there being too little discretion in some people, to the point where completely mundane things became racist in some people's books, and that just led to conflict when they called people out on them. For example, if someone feels an innate sense of unease because they are walking alone and a black person is walking behind them, that's a racist prejudice. A subtle one, and they didn't do anything overtly offensive, but it's still racist. Call that out. Ordering a black coffee in a cafe, not even remotely racist. Now, that second one is clearly a dumb thing to call out, and the vast majority of people wouldn't even think to, but I've seen both called out before. The stupid stuff like a black coffee is normally crazes, but it does happen. Now, when people see that, they naturally think these anti-racist people are getting way out of hand and lose interest in the cause. I hope I made that word salad make some sense, lol. I don't believe either is racist. If I'm walking alone at night and someone is walking behind me, it doesn't matter to me what race they belong to. Unless it's a little old lady, I'm probably gonna be on alert. This is also great advice in other countries. I lived in Bahrain for 6 years, way before the 2011 protests, which also turned incredibly violent thanks to the local police, and there were so many human rights cases that cold been swept under the rug if there weren't so many people, locals, and expats, proactively talking about it, questioning the government's actions, and encouraging others to do something about it. In the case of the police, one of the reasons why hundreds of people are protesting about it is because for years members of the federal/state police aren't treating their bad apples as seriously as in other sectors. Like imagine a hospital with several negligent/medical malpractice cases. Now imagine if the hospital CEO was like, yeah, we know that Dr. X had killed one of our patients, and 3 attendant surgeons enabled him plus Dr. X already had 18 complaints filed against him. So when people go, dude, he should followed orders, let it go, think back and understand, yeah, no one would say this if a doctor/nurse was killing people under their care. They would have been talking about it, expressing indignation and sending complaints. Especially family. Too often I see comments from people talking about how their parents or siblings or cousins are insanely racist, and then that's it. A lot of the non-racists tolerate it. They still invite them to parties. They still visit for Christmas, etc. Sure, you yourself might not be saying slurs and aren't cool with minorities, but by staying silent when your loved ones are racist you are being complicit. Being complicit with racism allows hatred to spread. In the George Floyd video we see a cop standing to the side. Who knows, maybe he's not racist, though I doubt it, but he still stood there while his colleague killed a black man and was complicit. He is also responsible for the death of George Floyd. Did this with some family members and got told I was being intolerant and making them feel bad for pointing out their intolerance. I'm not here to fucking come here with their racist bullshit. The problem is the more you get angry, even when you are entirely legitimate in doing so, the more the other person gets into a closed down state, and the more people watching think you're both unreasonable. I've found the most effective way is to remain calm, but just not back down. Yes, you are correct. I'm being intolerant to prejudice and discrimination. I know how capable of kindness and decency you are in so much of your life, so I hate to see these attitudes and comments bringing you down. I genuinely believe you can be better than this. Angry doesn't have to mean yelling. You bet your ass I'm angry every individual time I hear someone saying racist shit. That doesn't mean I yell or act aggressively. You should be angry, but you can still be calm and effective. You're not allowed to be intolerant of my intolerance. /s. Don't be silent when you hear or see it. This is such a hard one to work on. Every white person has experienced some other white person saying something racist and has to figure out what to do. Is it worth causing a conflict with this person if you call them out? Would it really change anything if you did? Or would the person just ignore you and know that they shouldn't say racist shit around you in the future? And the absolute worst is when they say something vaguely racist, i.e. racist dog whistle, and then pretend that what they said wasn't racist at all. Occasionally they'll pull the "you're the racist" card. I hate those fucking people the most. But yeah, calling out racism is a good thing, but 9 out of 10 times it's rarely as blatant as someone using the N-word or some other slur. And when it is obvious you need to consider if it's a battle worth fighting. Fortunately, once you start doing it becomes easier and easier. And when someone feigns ignorance or pretends like what they said wasn't racist, I'll either call them out for that bullshit or I'll just tell them if they didn't mean it to be racist they failed. Vote. Don't go for the guy that makes policies that restrict rights. Things like stop and frisk. Also, take Morgan Freeman's advice and don't think of people by their race and don't define yourself by your race. And contrary to what people might think, fuck diversity quotas. When you boil down someone's worth to their race, that is extremely racist and helps nobody. Don't actively seek black friends. Just organically make friends who happen to be black. I wish more people thought like you. I had to join the military for me to have that kind of outlook. I hope this gets to be the kind of thinking our future generation will have. #GETEDUCATED. Make friends with black people. We were supposed to actually integrate into one community, not just tolerate each other's presence until we can go home. Make friends with black people. A lot of small towns have next or even no black people. Growing up I met 3 black people by the time I was 18. Even with the internet, the idea of intentionally seeking out black friends online is kinda weird, just like it'd be for any other race/ethnicity. Yo homies, I'm a white boy living in Colorado who would love to make friends with African Americans. I'm all into rap, hip hop, blues, and jazz. Let's meet up and party like motherfuckers. Do you know what I'm saying? Third, homie. Even Miami's most Walter's heart was in the right place. Friends should not be chosen as your friend group looks more diverse points opposed to like the person, not their skin color. I grew up in a place like that. Then I started traveling and meeting people from other cultures, and it really changed my outlook on life. Most small townspeople's understanding of black people is what they saw on Bet. Maybe that's why racial relations got so bad. Is what they saw on Bet. Very few people in small predominantly white towns watch Bet. It'd be more what they see in national headlines combined with the fear and hatred of the unknown. It's definitely that. I was in a suburb, not even the country, and we only had 5 kids in my grade that were black. It's hard to understand a different culture when you're never exposed to it. Or, a history of black people being kicked out of small towns and even being banned from many sundown towns on threat of lynching, led to a situation where their most small towns are lily white and insular. But yeah, let's blame Bet instead. Just like how apparently the looters are the reason for police brutality and not the police. Black people stay getting blamed for systemic racism. It's fucking wild. They would be your pen pals, because they're in the pen/s. A lot of not so small towns too. I live in a large suburb that was redlined after WW2, so black families were legally barred from buying property for decades. Even when the law changes, de jure segregation, it takes generations for these communities to integrate, and they remain pretty homogeneously white, de facto segregation, for a long time, or they end up losing a lot of their residents to white flight. No, it's fine, I'm black. And when I went to college it was interesting meeting white people and going out and talking to new people. If someone came up to me nowadays and said they don't know many black people, I'd be fine talking to them and making friends with them. We don't need to be friends for people to not be ignorant. Call out people's racist shit. It could even be something as small as not laughing at someone's racist joke and explaining why it's offensive. If they get defensive, ask them to explain the joke and watch them twist themselves into a pretzel trying to justify it. Great advice. Be careful it doesn't burp in your face. Racist. This is good. Like when we hear a bunch of white boys saying nigger or making monkey noises unironically. But unfortunately it has lost its meaning over the years. One isn't a racist, for example, if they voted for Trump or doesn't agree with the ongoing protests. Misinformed, yes, but racist, that has yet to be proven. You're conflating saying someone is engaging in racist behavior with calling them racist. I live in a small town in a rural area, and there are a lot of good people who've learned shitty behaviors that have been passed down through generations and accepted without really being thought about. I run into this all the time at work. A coworker I'm friends with will tell a problematic joke, jabbing a finger into their chest, and calling them racist or sexist or whatever the case may be isn't helpful. And I know the person, and they're not bad. The joke is lousy. There's no need to make a scene and everything can stay friendly. I usually say something along the lines of, hey, I'm actually not so cool with that joke and here's why, and then explain. I've had a lot of good useful conversations this way, where everyone walks away feeling respected and with something to think about. A fun trick to use with people who makes racist/sexist jokes is to pretend that you don't get it. Not that you don't find it funny, but that you genuinely don't understand the joke. Make them explain it. Make them say out loud, because black people are all X, or women are all Y. Then look at them dumbfounded. I feel like you and commenters making similar mind game suggestions must hang with the softest people of that would shake someone. Really, it's so obvious when someone says explain the joke that they're offended and trying to hide it poorly. That won't make them back down. That will make them mock you for getting upset, and in the end, you are not shaming them. I'm telling you, when you hear fascist jokes, just say don't laugh, say that's not funny, and don't explain why it's not funny. Just make a direct statement that has more of an impact than trying to argue. My more asshole method is to look blank at the punchline and ask them to explain why it's funny, like I don't get it, and make them keep explaining, refusing to get the joke until they run out of words. Then I just go, whatever, and walk away. They usually shut the fuck up. That's true, but I'm trying to get better about not being a jerk about it. It's really easy for me to be flippant, make a sarcastic remark, or give a dead stare, but making people feel dumb and embarrassed just puts them on the defensive and shuts down their receptivity to new ideas, in my experience. so I try to keep it friendly even if I'm pissed. I mean, context matters. This works better if I already have a rapport with the person and they're not just an all-out hateful asshole. But I've actually had shockingly good luck with these conversations. The thinking and culture where I live currently is so far behind the times that often someone has just literally never thought of it that way because everyone's thought the same for years and it's just been accepted. The people I know who I'm proudest of who believe in equality and justice are the ones who grew up in places where they had no opportunity to learn any of that during their childhood, but at some point somebody talked to them and they were willing to listen and it opened their eyes. A lot of them are the most passionate allies I know, so sometimes it's worth the time to do it the Mr. Rogers way. You're a nicer person than I am. I'm in a job that puts me in daily contact with prison guards in the deep south, and I ran out of nice a while ago. I have had a few apologies over the years, so maybe I'll try your method again as a change up. I'm a middle-aged white woman, so I can be rude to prison guards and get apologies. If anyone thinks there's no such thing as white privilege, well, I hope I can use it to change things. Respect all people, don't put so much thought into it and overreact. Just treat others as you would want to be treated. Speak up when you hear it, see it or experience it. Be your brother's keeper and create an environment where racism is not able to thrive. The system is made of many small parts. Brilliantly put. Thank you. Call out casual racism. It's okay to call out that relative or coworker who makes racist jokes. Donate to anti-white supremacy causes. I'm a big fan of bail funds. And run for office. A lot of small town races have very low turnout and can be won simply by knocking on doors and talking to people. Read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It changed the way I saw the US. It changed the way I saw a lot of things. This will give you an idea. https://ncase.me/polygon/. This interactive lesson shows you a bit of the reality that most people don't have the intuition to realize. Thanks for watching.